Welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports. And we're back for another week of playoff football. Wild card weekend is in the books. So we turn the page to the divisional round. 8 teams remain. So we're going to recap the wild card slate and give you our predictions for who we think is moving on to the AFC and NFC championship game. It's kind of strange that we're so far into the season and that's almost over, but we got games to go through. So Tim, are you ready?
Hey, exciting divisional. Let's run it.
Let's do it. The first game that we're going to go through is, of course, the Green Bay Packers somehow still in the dance against the San Francisco 49ers. But first, let's recap how the Packers got there. Um, I didn't do great in wild card picks. I went 2-4, but one of my correct ones was the one that mattered. The Green Bay Packers absolutely curb stomped the Dallas Cowboys. It was almost like a Packers home game, right? It was basically
It was
America.
crazy.
It was America's team versus the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas, that title has been revoked. Place it on to Green Bay.
Nobody actually ever considers the Cowboys to be America's team anymore. It's just the saying because, it was. Because nobody likes the Cowboys other than
Yeah,
Cowboys
because
fans.
because the Packers are America's team.
No.
Yes,
God, no.
absolutely. You Bears fans just can't accept that the Packers are actually America's team. But we actually have a legitimately really good franchise quarterback, Jordan Love.
That
What
was
a
impressive performance.
day. 16 of 21, 272, 3 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. The highest QBR in the playoffs since the stat was invented on a 0 to 100 scale. Jordan Love was a 99.3 grade quarterback rating. He was absolutely phenomenal against the Cowboys defense that has been really good for most of the season. The Packers gave up 0 sacks. They kept Jordan Love clean all day. Receivers were able to run all over the field. Romeo Doubs had a buck 51 and a touchdown. Dontavion Wicks had a touchdown, and Luke Musgrave stayed on his feet, and the locker room went nuts. Dude, I think about that so frequently nowadays
Yeah.
because hey, Musgrave stayed on his feet, and we're all so very proud of him. Aaron Jones has been the star of this offense. Without him, we don't see nearly as much success. It's Jay Love and Aaron Jones that are, the point man and the gunner for this offense. Jones, 21 carries, 118 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He just has so much success playing in Dallas. And on the other side, Dallas just didn't have anything going. Dak Prescott threw the football 60 times, and at the end of the first quarter, he had more interceptions than passing yards. He had 0 passing yards and an interception in the second
That's
quarter
crazy to end a quarter with 0 passing yards and an interception. Like,
against Joe Barry's defense.
see, but the thing that the part of that I take real notice to is the fact that they were obviously so unbelievably atrocious for the entirety of the first quarter, weren't even very good in the second quarter. At least they
No,
got the touchdown before half. But the fact that Prescott still put up 403 passing yards and 3 touchdowns as well, it shows how good that offense can be when they're rolling. But they dug themselves way too
it,
deep of a hole to even dream of coming
it,
out
it
of. And this
there's a
one is
caveat to that. It also shows how
well,
good that Dak Prescott's offense can be against Joe Barry's backups for the last quarter and a half.
Well, yeah, exactly. When they were able to, like, when the Packers were able to, pull off the gas a little bit and put in those backups, yes, obviously that shows why they had a lot more success.
Is
But
this your
it's still,
MVP?
it's crazy. No.
Is this your MVP?
Um,
Because my MVP is wearing 10 in Green Bay.
yeah, I get it. I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times, but no, in this one, I think like it's pretty crazy to see. Like I didn't get the chance to sit down and watch this game. I just kind of pulled up the score and it was already, like 20-0, and I went, huh?
Oh, it was fun. It was a blast. We
But
were losing our minds.
yeah, absolutely crazy game. I mean, you got to hand it to Green Bay. It was a fantastic performance. I did say, when we were talking about predictions, that this is Mike McCarthy and the Dallas Cowboys in the playoffs. So anything can happen, and anything did happen. I think the more important thing to take away from this is 48 points from the Packers. That's an offensive performance that we have not seen up until this point this year. And not that you can expect them to put 40 points on most people, but it does show that when it counted most, everything was clicking in the right way. They were able to get Aaron Jones in the run game going. You talked about how important he is. Like, you saw throughout the beginning, like that first half of the season, and then when the Packers were able to pick up their stride, a lot of that time that they were struggling on was when Jones was kind of in and out with some of those injuries, and even when he was playing, he wasn't playing to full capacity as he was trying to work his way back. So you've seen how crucial of a point to that offense that he is, because it really opens up their passing game so much. And the Packers do love utilizing play action quite a bit. And I think that was a big way of why they were able to take off a lot of chunk yardage on a lot of these plays, because the Cowboys had to respect the run in this one because of what Jones was able to do, and they just picked him apart the rest of the way.
Well, that's the thing, Tim. Like, you talk about this Packers offense and how good it has been over the last few weeks. Imagine if they get Christian Watson and Jaden Reed going, because in that playoff game, Watson and Reed combined for this many receptions. Just
Yeah.
one. Just one. This Packers team is so young, and you can't clue in on any one receiver because they have six first and second year guys, and they're all really, really, really good. Like, all of them are good. All of them are fantastic. And that's not even including like Bo Melton or Malik Heath that have
I
stepped up
think,
in big ways.
yeah, I think the way that I would describe it, it's not that all four, five, or six of those guys are superstar studded receivers, but they do the simple things well. And I think the Packers offense does a good job of utilizing their playmakers in terms of getting them the ball without forcing them to do anything crazy. They utilize each of those guys' individual talents well. It's not like I think that you have five Devontae Adams on that team. Like, that's not what your
No,
roster has,
but
but your roster has,
Dontavion Wicks is Devontae Adams.
you can make
That is
whatever arguments in
literally the
terms
comp.
of
That is literally the
comparisons.
comp, dude.
um whatever comparisons you want to make, but what I'm saying more of is the fact that they utilize each of those their skill sets exceptionally well. I think the one that I'm most confused by is Christian Watson, just because of the fact that it's kind of like I don't know what they want to use him as, whether they want to use him as like a that big deep shot wide receiver because of his speed and his size, or whether or not they're
Yeah,
like,
he's a
let's
game
run him
wrecker
on end
though.
arounds a bunch, because
He,
obviously they've utilized him well in the running game at times. But big thing is trying to keep him healthy.
dude,
As with a lot of those offensive skill players.
we need him out there. We need Christian Watson out there
Yeah,
because
of
at
course. I
least
mean,
in the
he's
Dallas
talented.
game, watching the film, Dallas respected Christian Watson so much. If you ran him on like a post or a skinny, they'd have like two or
You
three
got to
guys
follow.
covering him. Yeah, you had to
Yeah,
follow him. And that let like Dobbs run wide open, or Wicks,
yeah.
or Luke Musgrave. But I mean, that's enough ranting and raving about the Packers offense. We have nothing to recap for San Francisco because they were on a bye week. Let's get right into the predictions. And Tim, what do you think I'm gonna say?
Well, I'm gonna think. I think that you're probably gonna make
Is
some
the
type
sky blue?
of. Right now it's pretty gray, but for
Is
you,
the
it's all
sky
about the one more,
darn right?
and
Hey,
why
one
not
one
us?
more week. Why not us? That's exactly right. It's
I've
about
heard
the
it time and time again.
It's about the wings, man. It's about the wings. Because for the last 3 weeks, the Packers have won. And after that, I've gotten Wingstop, and they have never not proceeded to go on and win the next week. So
Yeah.
they haven't lost since I've started that tradition. They're
So have you figured out the secret? You just have to eat wings, and the Packers will never lose another football game.
exactly. That's why. That's
Huh?
literally
That's
why.
a pretty good strat.
Yeah, I mean, I ate wings after the Cowboys
That's a pretty
game.
cheap price to pay for never losing another football game.
Oh, please. If I just have to treat myself to delicious wings after every win, I think I'll be getting wings from like now until
Not
the end of
sponsored by
time.
Wingstop, by the way.
No, I just really like their food. That I feel like that's a caveat. But Wingstop, if you somehow see this and would love to sponsor us, feel more I would be more than happy with that.
Hey, honestly, at this point, I feel like we might bring in more business than the Detroit Pistons, and they have a deal with them. So
I swear, dude, I have given so much money to that one certain Wingstop over the years. that they might as well sponsor us. It might take a while before we make our money back for all the money that I've spent on them, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, we're actually going to win because we have the advantage at quarterback, we have the advantage at head coach, and they're not ready for what we're bringing. Oh yeah, I said what I said. Jordan Love is objectively better than Brock Purdy, and Matt LaFleur has done a way better coaching job than Kyle Shanahan. And the fact that Kyle Shanahan went, and Nick Bosa as well, went and called Jordan Love a system quarterback. Oh boy, they're done. They're screwed. They're absolutely screwed. We hang 48 on the Cowboys. That's a better defense. We might hang 50 on the Niners. Fitty burger, baby.
Are we really trying to call the Cowboys defense better than the 49ers now?
Absolutely.
Since when?
All year.
No, not at all. The Cowboys defense has been significantly worse than the 49ers this year.
Well, the numbers don't lie, but you know.
I mean, what it comes
if
down
you
to
want,
is
if you want to go off the eye test, fine. But there's no reason to fear this 49er team. None at all.
I can give you 4, and that
Sure.
would be the defensive line. That alone is going to be very interesting to see how the Packers manage in this game. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what they're able to do in terms of stopping that pressure. Because having Bosa on one end and Chase Young on the other.
Really? How are the
yeah.
Packers going to stop DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons? You know how many sacks they got? None.
I'm just saying, like, I think this game will prove more challenging on the defensive side of the ball than you think. I also, if you want to talk about advantages, I know you talk about, like, you know, how talented the young receiving core is, but in terms of playmakers, the 49ers have you there.
Sure.
At the quarterback position, obviously, I'm not calling Brock Purdy, you know, the genius quarterback that some people think he is. But to me, it's not about how, you know, genius he is. It's about the system that he's in.
Yeah,
And
I was
as we've
going to say,
proven that 49ers quarterbacks do well because of the offense that they're put into.
look, man, if you want a system quarterback, there will be a system quarterback in this game. It's not on Green Bay though.
But what I'm telling you though is, to me in this, what it comes down to is whether or not the Packers will be able to put up even remotely a similar defensive performance against the 49ers offense as they were able to the Cowboys.
That's the caveat.
Because here's the thing. Obviously, we've talked about time and time again, week in, week out, what version of the Packers defense is going to show up. They were able to get turnovers against the Cowboys. That is the bottom line. That's what they needed to do, and they were able to do that. Will they be able to do that against the 49ers offense? I'm not as confident in that.
Yeah, I'm fully mentally preparing myself for Christian McCaffrey to run for like 300 yards and for me to just, you know, be in a pit of despair.
Because that's the one thing that the 49ers have that the Cowboys don't. It's a run game.
Oh yeah.
That's the glaring difference, because Tony Pollard has struggled massively throughout the year in terms of his first, you know, big running back one campaign. The 49ers, on the other hand, have, you know, an offensive player of the year candidate at running back.
You know what? It'll be a fun game regardless. Saturday night.
No,
and
totally. And here's the thing. I think it will be competitive. I'm not saying that I'm predicting like a 49ers blowout. This is definitely going to be a competitive game.
I don't know,
think
Tim.
Certain chips will fall the way that they lie. I trust the
know.
49ers a bit more in this one.
There's been a pattern of Packers 49ers games that have gone like,
yeah,
blowout, close game, blowout, close game, and like right now we're on the blowout portion of that, so hopefully we can break that trend. I just want to beat him, man. I don't want to lose, you know, it would be fifth time in the last 12 years.
It would be a bit of a breaking of a curse with the Green Bay Packers and San Francisco 49ers in the playoffs. So, you know, here's the thing. We are in the era of football of breaking, you know, stereotypes and breaking curses. The Lions are in the playoffs. You know, the Texans have made it back. Heck, the Browns made it with Joe Flacco. Like, we're in a different era of football right now. Anything can happen. But of course, you know, the one stereotype that couldn't be broken is the Cowboys losing in the first round.
I mean, look, everybody and their mother on any talk show picked the Cowboys to beat the Packers. And now everybody else is picking the 49ers to beat the Packers. So licking our chops, keep disrespecting us. And
here's the thing. Even looking back on even looking back on everything, I will be totally honest that 9 times out of 10, if I go back, I'm still picking the Cowboys. Like that, I can't lie and say that I would, go back and be like, well, actually, I still would pick the Cowboys. But
You know
when it
what,
came
Tim?
down
You
to
you
it,
die on your hill, I'll die on mine. I'm picking the Packers 11 times out of 10. Every day of the week and twice on Sunday, just cause I feel like it. You know what I mean? But we have so many more games to run through, and as
that we
much as
do.
I'd love to just make this just a Packers only episode where I can rant and rave about how good my team has been and how happy I am just to still be alive, you know, it's all right. You know what? There's going to be a lot more to talk about when the Packers move on and they're going to play the Lions in the NFC Championship game. Yes, I know I just played my hand, but we got the Tampa Bay
Well,
Buccaneers taking on the Detroit Lions. Let's start with
what did
that.
I say about them books?
Well, I was going to start with Detroit because I think that's a far better story, but we can start with the Bucks. The Buccaneers absolutely throttled the Philadelphia Eagles because my God, the Eagles are fraudulent because you had
They
not
look
one
bad.
but two embarrassingly bad NFC East teams make their exit in the playoffs. 32-9, and it's not like Baker did anything particularly special, but he diced that defense. That defense could not tackle. The offense couldn't get anything going. Not having AJ Brown didn't help, but I in the rebound that I expected to happen, or at least was hoping for. Now I shouldn't say expected because I'm not totally shocked that the Eagles are like just the big one and done, but it just simply put didn't happen. And I think I should have seen this coming just because of who is calling the defensive plays for the Eagles. Looking right at you, Matt Patricia. Nick Sirianni might get fired. But I mean, on the other
I
side,
don't
what is
know.
well, there's rumors. Well,
Yeah.
on the other side, what a story for Baker and the Bucks. I'm super happy for Baker Mayfield, everything that he's
Oh
been
yeah.
through. Four teams in what last 3 seasons after getting cut from Carolina, that short stint in LA, and now he's like a 1 year deal with Tampa Bay, and now he's probably going to be the franchise quarterback of the future. There's an argument that there is to be made that Baker Mayfield's going to get a lot of money from Tampa Bay. I mean, I'm happy for him. I'm absolutely happy for
Oh,
him. I'm happy for the Bucks. Um, and the fact that either one of Baker Mayfield or Jared Goff will be going to the NFC Championship game is absolutely
that's
bonkers.
crazy.
Straight up NFC
Yeah.
Central vibes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it's a pretty crazy story, especially where we started this season, in you bringing up the conversation of should Kyle Trask start over Baker Mayfield.
I regret it. I regret that even being a thing that came out of my mouth.
Oh,
I
I
have
had
to
to I had to
issue.
call back to that for a second because that
You
was
didn't
hilarious to me
have
at the
to.
time.
You didn't have to, but I mean that was the prevailing narrative. I feel like I should write a handwritten letter and send it to Tampa Bay, a
Like, I
formal
apologize.
apology to Baker Mayfield. I promise. I like Baker. I like Baker. I
Yeah.
like what he brings to the table. It was just like we didn't know, man. We didn't know.
No, we didn't. We
Nobody
we didn't
knew.
know how. That's the thing. We didn't know how this was going to turn out. It has turned out, I would say, significantly better than a lot of people expected. Obviously, them getting in the playoffs from the NFC South wasn't all that pretty and all that impressive, but they did what they needed to do, and he learned and got better as the season went on in a lot of different ways. And it came down to he hit his stride when he needed to. And against, this reeling Eagles team, he looked pretty solid. Like you said, he didn't necessarily do anything special, but
Yeah,
22 for 36, 337 yards and 3 touchdowns. Not a bad stat line.
no, I mean we
Um,
we had some special performances looking at you, Jordan Love and CJ Stroud, who we'll get to after this. But, Baker did what he needed to do.
yeah, and overall, I think to me what it came down to is looking at this game and why I chose to pick the Buccaneers. There were too many factors that were going against the Eagles, not only in terms of like who they had healthy and the actual like tangible player stuff, combined with essentially the yips almost, and how the season ended, for how the regular season ended for them.
Ah,
With with,
yes.
with
I'll
Jalen
write
Hurts going
that.
in,
That's a headline. Eagles. Yips. I'm sure
yeah,
that'll fly in Philly.
exactly. But yeah, combined when you combine Jalen Hurts coming off of the finger injury and not knowing essentially how close to 100% he was going to be with AJ Brown being out, as you saw, the Eagles really couldn't get much of anything going until they finally got Devonta Smith involved more, and then he had a very solid game. But there was a lot that just wasn't really going their way, and the
Yeah.
Buccaneers took advantage of that early and often, and they were able to hold them off at arm's length the whole way, and including a solid defensive performance as well in terms of stopping what the Eagles do best. I mean, they even were able to stop the brotherly shove down near the goal line for the 2-point conversion. So overall, I was impressed with the Buccaneers. I can't say that I think this is a sustainable style of offense in the playoffs and style of
Oh,
play,
yeah.
which
True.
brings us to the prediction aspect of the
Does
divisional
it?
round with their
Does
matchup.
does it? Because we still got to recap the Rams and the Lions.
I guess this is true. We can jump over
Yeah.
to the Rams Lions because that one was a very fun game to watch, as I think we all expected.
Oh, of course. The narrative was there. It was Jared Goff coming, as this leader of Detroit, playing against the team that discarded him and traded him, and Matthew Stafford on the other side, coming back to the city that he once quarterbacked and led for so long. But
Long time.
only one of these teams could get their storybook ending. Matthew Stafford played very well, 367 yards and 2 touchdowns. Puka Nakua showed out, rookie record for receiving yards in a
Dude's
playoff
crazy.
game with 181. Guy is
He's legit.
nuts.
Yeah.
He is absolutely legit. I mean, the Rams were not a team to be messed around with, but the storybook season for the Detroit Lions continues a little bit longer. I mean, we talked about Sam Laporta with that knee. He got in the end zone, was able to contribute
Yeah.
for a touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown did his thing with 110 yards. Both running backs got a touchdown with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. And yeah, there was a little bit of ref ball in the end, but I think it's about darn time
There
that the
almost
Lions caught a
always is.
break. It's
Yeah.
about darn time that the Lions caught a break, so nobody's like, whatever. And also comeuppance for the Rams for that hit against the Saints many years ago. So now we're gonna move on to the predictions segment of this matchup between the Bucks and the Lions. It's very rare that the Detroit Lions are continuing to play football entering into the middle of January, and Lions fans are not used to it. And I'm just going to keep it straight
Neither are the
up.
rest of us.
Well, you know what? It's going to keep going a little bit longer because the Detroit Lions, I already, kind of played my hand, said that they were going to win. Congratulations, Detroit. What's it like hosting an NFC championship game? It's pretty nice, I
Uh,
gotta say.
that'd be pretty crazy. But
We
actually,
we
I
will we
mean,
will absolutely see a rematch of the matchup last year that knocked Aaron Rodgers and the Packers out of the playoffs, but this year it's going to be to go to the Super Bowl. And the
that would
result
be
is going
uh
to be different.
that would be something. I gotta be honest, I don't see that happening. But what I do
Of
see
course you
is
don't.
I do see Detroit
You
moving
hater.
forward. I
Don't be a
think
fan
this
later.
this one is going to be, why would I be a fan later? um
I don't
but
know. I
I
mean, I'm going to pick the Packers all the way to the Super Bowl. You're going to pick
guess what?
against the
Good
Packers
thing we're
all the
not
way to the
talking
Super
about the
Bowl.
Packers anymore. Um, with
Oh,
this matchup though,
whatever.
I really do see this being another really grinded out game. Part of that reasoning, I think part of the reason that the Tampa Bay, they did well, but one of the things, if you notice, they didn't have necessarily a great run game against that Eagles defensive line. I think that Tampa Bay might have a bit more success with Rashad White in this one in terms of actually utilizing both their passing and rushing attack. But also what we saw out of the Lions is the fact that they were very balanced in that win over the Rams. The fact that they were able to get both running backs going a decent amount, at least get them both in the end zone. I think that the Lions' balanced offensive attack is going to be what essentially takes over this Buccaneers secondary, because the Buccaneers at times have shown that they can be a little bit spotty in certain games where they just, if the momentum hasn't gone their way. And the Lions are riding about as high as they possibly can right now. The fans are going to be so unbelievably ready for that game. This is a game, and obviously it's not like Ford Field is like known for its atmosphere, but because of what's at stake, that place is going to be
Yeah,
going
you
absolutely
gotta
insane and going to be
remember
rocking. So
there.
I think
Yeah,
the home field advantage is going to give the Lions an edge in this one, specifically because of essentially I think this is going to be a truly grinded out game on both sides.
you know, the old saying goes, there's no time like your first time, and that can be in whatever context you want it to be in. And for the Lions, they are having an absolute hell of a ride. But we got to keep going to the AFC side. The Houston Texans are going to Baltimore to play the Ravens. And since the Ravens
I
have,
trusted my Texans, baby. I
yeah, and
say my
since,
like they're my team, but
yeah, exactly. What? Get out of here. And what are you, a closeted Texans fan this whole time?
hey, I mean they're a fun team to watch, and there's a
I
reason
will
why I
say
picked them.
if there's ever a time to abandon the futility of the Bears and hop on a bandwagon, I guess now is the time. There's no time like the present. Since the Ravens didn't have a playoff game, they had a bye. We only have one game to recap, and that is the Houston Texans demolishing the Cleveland Browns like everybody thought they would. Sorry, Joe. I I'm sorry,
Sorry,
Joe.
Elite Joe,
Dude, I thought Joe Flacco in January would come back, but you know, those back-to-back pick
Joey
sixes
January.
were, you know,
Yeah,
real
well,
backbreakers.
you mentioned those entirely changed the course of the game because that put them essentially being like, okay, we need to pick it up, to it almost being completely out
At
of
that point,
reach
it was
in
done.
2 minutes, and that completely changed the course of the game. It allowed the Texans not to need to keep putting the pressure on CJ Stroud and on some of those young guys, those receivers, without guys like Tank Dell. But overall, there
Can we
there was a
talk about
lot.
CJ Stroud for a minute? Because wow.
Man's looks good. You know, one of the things that's interesting about that, and the quick side note before we go into his actual performance, it's very interesting to me. And obviously, we're not going to dive into how QBR exactly is calculated, but CJ Stroud and Jordan Love had almost exactly the same stat line, but yet CJ Stroud was like 1 point lower on QBR. It's interesting to me. I
Uh
don't know exactly how that
defense is
discrepancy
factored
happens.
in.
Okay, I mean, I guess I could see that being the case, but yeah, it was just interesting to me because they were
Like
both
there
16 for
so
21. They passed within 2 yards of each other,
yeah,
274 to 272, and both had 3 touchdowns. I'm like, that's about as close to identical stat lines as you're going to see with quarterbacks.
I they definitely do take defense into account, and there were some defensive breakdowns on the side of the Browns that didn't quite happen on the Cowboys defense because like if you think about those passing touchdowns, um none of them really came easy, and when it did come easy, it wasn't because like the Cowboys absolutely collapsed. It was because of Matt LaFleur's fantastic play design. Like Matt LaFleur designed Luke Musgrave wide open. Like you saw it
Oh
week
yeah, no
one
one was
against the
there.
Bears.
Literally, no one was there.
No, but like in week one against the Bears, when they ran literally the exact same play, just flipped to the other side, Luke Musgrave was also wide open. It was just the perfect time to call that play. Um, yeah, like Brevin Jordan running wide open for a 76-yard touchdown.
Brevin Jordan kind of fast.
Trust me, I've
I
been
was
watching Brevin
I was
Jordan
surprised.
for years.
I
They
was
bring
surprised at the wheels he was able to turn on there.
Hey,
Yeah.
it's a Canes thing, Tim. You wouldn't understand, but the discrepancy in QBR, that is nothing compared to the outrage and the discrepancy in the Pro Football Focus grade, where I think Jordan Love got like a 92 grade and CJ Stroud got like a 77, and
Wow.
like Mahomes and Allen were both graded higher than
Hmm.
Stroud. Yeah,
Interesting.
you know what? There are people that are a lot angrier about it than but
Yeah.
that's neither here nor
That's
there. It's
yeah.
neither
I
here
was
nor
just that was
there.
just interesting for me to look at, but overall, for a rookie quarterback in his first
Oh, sure.
performance, the fact that we had two, first time quarterbacks in the playoffs put up incredible stat lines like that,
Yeah,
it was really cool to watch, really fun to watch. And in this one, I mean, we talked about the fact that the Browns defense is
dude.
obviously very good.
No
And you
matter
just
how you
said,
slice it, no matter how you slice it, CJ Stroud and Jordan Love look like the future of this league. As
they
much
look
as you may like it on one side or hate it on the other, these guys are both spectacular quarterbacks and they're going to be around for a while. I hope, please don't let Jordan Love leave. I will be very, very sad. Unless it's like in 2040 to go to the Jets, then I'm like, all right, cool. You know, here, we'll take your first round pick this time around. But, either way, the future is most definitely now with Love and Stroud. But on to our predictions aspect. Tim, who do you got?
This one is, I feel like I say this one is tough for literally every prediction that I make because predicting things is tough.
None of these games are easy. Like
But
predicting, like we think we have all the answers. Like
yeah.
I went 2-4. Like I got
Yeah, no,
I
it's
I got my favorite team correct, who I was picking literally no matter what, and then the Bills, who was an absolute slam dunk. I think my mother could have told you that the Bills were winning, but
you may
my
be
mama
right.
kind of knows ball, so it's all good though. She kind of
No,
knows
I
ball.
see that. No, I definitely see that. In this one, I think what it comes down to is um whether or not I trust what I would say, not the system, but the weapons around these
The
guys.
system.
But here's the thing. We've seen Baltimore come into the playoffs before
Lamar
with
Jackson is the system.
he is, and he's played fantastic this year. But all it takes is just a little bit of underestimating, and this game could be completely flipped on its head, similar to what we saw with Texans Browns. I think again there is something to be said about CJ Stroud feeling counted out. I think that was a big motivator in that first round game, as they said, as I said in the prediction game, in terms of being on Pat McAfee's show and being like, "Hey,
All right.
bet." I think there could be some of this in this one. I don't know if I trust the Ravens team as a whole to pick up when the pressure is on, because this game is going to be full of pressure because the Texans are not going to go down without a fight. And I'm not sure, because the Ravens look great when they're dominating, but can they stand the test when it's going to be a really grinded out game, even with it being in Baltimore? I got to be honest. I trust the spunk and essentially the underdog
The
mentality that I think
spunk.
this Texans team has. I mean, they've been counted out throughout the entirety of the year. Obviously, we counted them out, and I think that they've got what it takes to move on in this one. I think the Ravens get surprised.
Tim, if there's one way to describe a quarterback that is only a few months older than we are, that is going to win Rookie of the Year, I think Spunky is one of them. But,
A spunky fellow.
oh yeah, if there's one thing CJ Stroud has got, it's that spunk. But as far as
He got
I
that spunk
go,
in him.
ew, good Lord, man. Can I make my prediction, please? Or are we gonna keep talking about CJ Stroud's spunk?
What do you got for this one?
You're right. It's absolutely tough. The Texans are on a roll. They're playing with so much confidence. They're playing with so much swagger. It's like, who's gonna stop them? But if there's ever a time for John Harbaugh and the Baltimore Ravens to, I don't want to say like exercise some playoff demons, because playoff Lamar hasn't been great. I think it'd be now. I think the Ravens have the talent to definitely go all the way. I certainly see them winning here. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's very possible, and we know how good that defense can be, but it's what version of them shows up on any given day. So
We'll
that's why they
see.
play.
We got one more game to go, and this one is, I would say, the hardest to predict. The Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. We had a couple interesting cold weather games to get here, though, starting with the Chiefs beating the Dolphins 26-7 in an absolutely frigid Arrowhead, one of the coldest playoff games of all
The fourth
time.
coldest.
Yes, I actually know somebody who went to that game. He had free tickets, so he decided to sit in the upper bowl. Um,
Wow.
yeah, he's either an idiot or crazy for that one. Take your pick, but you know what? I respect the
Hey,
hell out of it.
talk about an experience though. An experience that you will remember for the rest of your life. So I certainly can't blame him. That was a
And
pretty crazy
frostbite that
game.
you will carry for the rest of your life.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
But
Hold my
yeah,
beer. My beer is frozen. Anyway, um That was the one pick that I made last week that I was like,
You're
wow.
like,
I'm like, wow, this is really, really, really dumb of me. That was really, really, really stupid for me to pick the Dolphins.
It turned
And
out exactly how I expected, that
and
the
see, here's the
Dolphins
thing.
couldn't put
You
together
you
much on
know me.
offense.
You know me. I don't like backtrack or like do any of that
Once you
often.
said it, you're like, I'm sticking with it,
Yeah,
which I
once I
respect.
well, once I say a thing, it's typically like pretty confident. It's like, oh yeah, no, I totally believe this. Um, I completely disregarded the weather when I said it, and I'm like, well, that has left my mouth, so I can't take it back. And you were like, oh yeah, it's gonna be freezing, and I'm like, well,
And
that was
Dolphins
really,
can't swim in
really,
ice.
really stupid. No, they can't swim in ice. No, they couldn't run the ball in ice.
No, they could not. And
Couldn't.
I think that was a big difference maker in this game, is the fact, I mean, neither team had great success on the ground, but the Dolphins usually are able, I mean, you talk about league leading rusher in terms of touchdowns and Raheem Mostert, and how A-Chain was able to come on
Yeah,
throughout the year in
dude,
terms of his
42 yards
production.
combined from
Yeah.
Mostert and A Chain on
That
14 carries.
massively changed how they could approach their offensive game plan.
If you would have told me that Tua was going to throw the ball 39 times and he was just going to do it on a bunch of short passes and slip screens and all that, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh,
And
well,
and and throwing it 39 times but couldn't break 200 yards. Like at 199 right up there. So that wasn't going to be a recipe for success no matter
you know
who
what?
they were playing.
If you would have told me that before we filmed the wild card predict, I would have been like, oh yeah, no, Dolphins are screwed. Chiefs are moving on. Like
Yeah.
there was no if, ands, or buts. I'll bite the bullet on that one. Probably one of my stupidest predictions that I've ever put out on the internet. Which is fine. There's gotta be some of them. Tim, I don't think you can find a dumber one. I really, really don't. Other than
We could definitely find some interesting ones. We've been doing this for a
we have been
while.
doing this for a while. I will say, no, that's definitely up there with the White Sox winning the AL Central in 2023. They lost 101 games for context. That one was really, really, really bad on my part. But you know what? Actually, I don't think that one was nearly as bad because, this one was short-sighted. Like we had all of the elements we needed to actually predict the game instead
Yeah,
of
and you
like
still picked.
predicting something in February that wasn't going to come to fruition until like October. That's
Yeah.
completely different. And predicting things over a 9-month long season is very, very difficult.
I
Um,
would say this one was
brain dead,
ill-advised
brain dead.
at best.
Gee, thanks for being so uncharacteristically nice about it. But yeah, the Chiefs had a lot better success throwing the ball. They were clearly better prepared for the conditions, even though Andy Reid
They
and his
were, but there
stash,
was
Andy
there was
Reid and their
also a lot
stash
of drops
sickle.
though. Yeah,
Uncharacter, yeah, that was
that
hilarious.
was hilarious. But I think
No,
I
you're
want to
right.
say I saw Travis Kelsey had like two or three balls go through his hands, and I was like, wow, that was surprising to me. But obviously they still got
Well,
enough
I
production.
mean, you
I'm
try going
incredibly
out there in
impressed.
like negative
Oh,
30-degree wind chill and try catching a football and see how much success you have. I give more credit to Rashi Rice than anybody, going 8 of
he's
12,
he's
130
really
and a
impressing me.
touchdown. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
he's
was
really starting to step up, and I think he definitely has the possibility to be a very very big part of this Chiefs offense going forward, especially if he can continue growing with his relationship with Mahomes and just essentially what his role is in that offense.
1,000%. But enough about there because like it was very evident that the Kansas City Chiefs were the better team. Let's move on to the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Buffalo Bills, which was actually a lot closer than a lot of other people, including myself, would have predicted.
Yeah, I
But it
agree.
didn't. But it didn't really ever seem like the game was in doubt. Buffalo jumped out to a 14-0
No.
lead super early with a pair of touchdowns, and at that point, I'm like, all right, this game's won. This game's won by Buffalo. They were clearly the better team, and also not nearly as cold weather. But it was still unforgiving.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you saw that for me in terms of the unforgiving conditions. I think you saw that a bit more with some of the fumbles that happened for the Steelers. The Steelers had quite a few
Hmm.
fumbles in terms of some of them being key moments. They had
Those
an
are incredibly
interception
costly.
and the interception that was in the end zone for Mason Rudolph.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, a lot of things go a little differently. This game could have been a lot closer than it looked in terms of you see the final score of 31-17. This game could have been a lot closer with things going differently. Buffalo to start the second half really didn't look very good. They had great offensive success in the first half, and for some reason coming out of halftime, they weren't really on the same page as they were for a lot of the first half. So their defense carried them a lot more through the second half in terms of keeping Pittsburgh at bay. Pittsburgh not having TJ Watt, really put them at a much
That
more
was
of
a
a
big one.
disadvantage on the defensive side of the ball. So there were a lot of things that obviously pointed towards why we both picked Buffalo and why they won this game. But I have to say, there was definitely a lot more iffiness for
Well,
certain parts of the game for Buffalo than I would have expected.
sure. And you're not wrong, but I think in a game like this, it doesn't really matter how you win. All that matters is that
No,
you
I
win.
mean, and they still put up 31. Like we can't say
You
that
can't.
Buffalo had like a terrible game. They still looked good. Josh
Hmm.
Allen looked good. They were able to move the ball. They spread the ball out for, a lot of different guys, getting both tight ends involved in terms of finding them in the end zone. Both Kincaid and Knox were able to get a touchdown. So they were able to, get their offense going enough. But it was
But
interesting to
Tim,
see of how close they were. They were close to letting the Steelers back in the game, though. And that's what was a little bit nerve-wracking to me of watching this Bills team let a Mason Rudolph led Steelers offense that was turning the ball over a lot almost back into this
so
game.
for our final prediction of the divisional round,
Mm-hmm.
Allen Mahomes 3 in the playoffs.
That's pretty crazy.
And this time, it's in Buffalo. This is Patrick
It
Mahomes'
is.
first playoff road game in his career. And he's been around a lot longer than you'd think. Like the passage of time is
He
really
still feels really young, but also at the same time, you think about how long he's already been sort of the face
a,
of the
a thousand
NFL, and
percent.
it's like, yeah, he's been around for a bit
Yeah,
longer than you think.
he's been around
So for
like
the fact that this is his first playoff road game is pretty insane.
Patrick Mahomes is 28 and Josh Allen's 27. To think about that. They've
Yep.
been around a while. Um, when it comes to this one, I was going back and forth for a while about this because
This one had me reeling.
this is the burgeoning rivalry of, our era. This is like Brady Manning. It's Mahomes and Allen, the matchup that's going to keep coming around and around and around, and these battles are epic every time, and I've no doubt that this time around will be the same. However, one of the common themes of this playoff and it has fueled a fair bit of my logic thus far, at least in this round. The better quarterback usually wins, right? I like you could track it back. Like Baker Mayfield was far better than Jalen Hurts, right? He
Oh,
won.
100%.
Yeah. Like Jordan Love was better than Dak Prescott. He won. Mahomes outplayed Tua. Mahomes ended up winning. Allen and Rudolph, like that one wasn't even close. Like Stroud was significantly better than Flacco. So when I look at these quarterbacks right now, Josh Allen is playing at an MVP type level, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. Um, and the Bills are going to have fire in their eyes after coming up short the previous two times against Mahomes, and it's in their
Yep.
building. The Bills are hungry. The Bills are hungry. They want a championship. They want to drive the stake into the Chiefs while the opportunity is ripe. And look, you had some concerns about how they beat the Steelers. Quite frankly, I couldn't care less. They won. That's all that
Yeah.
matters, and I think they're going to win again here against the Chiefs.
No, that's perfectly fair. Obviously, all it takes is you just do whatever you can to advance. But yeah, no, this one was incredibly difficult to look at in terms of we've seen them play in the playoffs multiple times. So how much are you going with recency bias in terms of how each team is playing individually versus how each team has approached certain of their playoff performances, et cetera, et cetera. But to me, what it came down to is despite the Chiefs putting up a pretty solid performance in the first round against the Dolphins, they had a lot that didn't look that pretty. I think Travis Kelce has a lot to be angry about with how that game went and how he performed. I think that offense has a lot to that they would have liked to do a lot better. I think that Buffalo has a lot of that as well in terms of some of the mistakes that they made throughout that game to still make it sort of a game. But I think I got
However,
but
however,
however,
comma,
however, I gotta trust the Chiefs' playoff experience. Obviously, they don't have as much of essentially some of the players that have made it, this key thing. But I gotta be honest, I think what it comes down to in this game, believe it or not, I trust Mahomes, Rashee Rice more than I trust Alan Diggs right now because Diggs has not looked like the receiver that we know Stephon Diggs to be throughout a lot of this year, and
interesting.
that actually has shown its sort of reared its ugly head not only in a good amount of the regular season, but especially the second half, and a little bit of that against the Steelers. Buffalo did not move the ball very well with Stephon Diggs. They moved the ball well with Dalton Kincaid, with Khalil Shakir. Shakir has been playing very well lately. Even like we said, utilizing Dawson Knox. I trust when it comes down to you need to go to your guy. I trust Mahomes and Rashee Rice more right now. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs, even on the road. Obviously, Bills Mafia is going to be going crazy in Buffalo because the fact that they actually get to host the Chiefs for once. But I think the Chiefs they're going to have, I think, a little bit of a chip on their shoulder that they're not used to having in the playoffs. And I think when you start getting Mahomes and Travis Kelce with that kind of extra fire, not necessarily being the odds-on favorite for everything, I think there's something to that. I think the Chiefs might come and surprise them, especially with the fact of what we've seen from the Bills in terms of how their offense sputtered for almost an entire quarter in their last game.
Well, Tim, let me put it this way. If you ran a simulation of totally accurate battle simulator and you had the
Great
entirety
game,
of
by the way.
Bills Mafia versus Taylor Swift, who wins? And that's all I have to say about
And that
that.
all I have to say is, where in the world is Swifty Nation on this one? Where are the
Mm.
Swifties? Because if the Swifties are behind Taylor, it's Taylor all the way.
Uh,
There
I don't
might be a
know. I
billion
don't
of them
know.
out there.
I mean, I don't know why they'd be coming to Buffalo. I can guarantee you Bills Mafia is going to show up. I don't know about all the Swifties. Um,
Hey, there might be some.
That's an excellent point. For God knows what reason, why in the world that would ever happen
Couldn't
is
tell you.
1,000% beyond me. But that's
But there
all we
might.
got. That's all we got for our divisional round predictions and wild card recap. If you want to watch some of our other stuff on the channel, we have tons of football content as well as other sports, including college basketball, baseball, and anything else you want us to talk about. So if you have any suggestions, let us know. And until next time,
Be
Tim.
prepared. The return of Boombuster Believable is right around the corner.
Ah, yes, that is a thing that Tim is embarking on relatively soon. So Big Ten college basketball fans, stay tuned. Until
Stay
next
tuned.
time, we out.